Welcome, welcome, everybody. Let me scooch back here. Here we go. Welcome to another Community Fit, and in particular, a Friday Adjusting to Change Toolkit class. I'm your host, James. Bob the dog is here, but asleep over there. Pay attention. He'll join here at some point. Um, Show of hands for anyone new to the class. If you want to send up an emoji, if you just want to raise your hand, whatever the case may be. So we got a couple here. Welcome, new folks. Great. Okay. So just a handful of new folks. Welcome. We're going to catch you up the best we can. This class runs a lot like a course, meaning we build each week, but that doesn't mean that you can't get something out of it today. We are going to start with reviewing and kind of running through some nervous system toolkit practices. If you'd like to know more about nervous system toolkit practices, and those are breathing exercises, sensory foraging exercises, therapeutic touch practices, movement practices, and vocalization practices, there are so many resources on our YouTube page. Also, I think of those things as like categories. So if as we're exploring and playing today, the breathwork practice really works well for you, this is encouragement for you to go and explore what other breathwork practices might work for you. This class isn't necessarily about covering everything you could possibly do. It's about introducing you to some options and choices, and for you, the participant, to discern what works really well for you and practice those things. Go and learn more of those things. And I think as important to discern what doesn't work well for you, because not one nervous system toolkit practice, breathwork doesn't work for everyone. Not one nervous system toolkit bucket or grouping of practices works for everybody. So some people are breathwork people, some people prefer sensory foraging, some are like therapeutic touch. So we're going to explore a bit of that. And today we're going to continue along with our theme for this 6 week period. So we have this class and two more after this. We're continuing along with our theme of cognitive appraisal and reappraisal. Last week we started to dive into it and we looked at it mostly through the lens of somatic practices. We're going to revisit some of that, creating an embodied experience before we jump into a cognitive awareness about it. And we're going to continue that conversation. So, with all of that said, we're actually going to do an abbreviated version of our nervous system toolkit work and then dive right into some of the practices for today. Next week, I will not be here in person, but I'm creating a video for you and we're going to talk about habits, kind of how do we take some of these nervous system toolkit practices? How do we take some of these cognitive reappraisal practices? How do we take a practice you're just interested in general and create some habit formation out of it? So that's where we're going. And then the very last week, we're just going to do a review of everything. So if you are brand new, stick with us. You're going to get a lot out of today in the next couple of weeks. And if you've been with us for a while, feel free as we're exploring and playing today to drop in any questions you might have, either into the chat or the Q&A function. You discern what works best for you, but drop in whatever questions you have. I'll stick around after class for a bit and answer whatever questions come up today. Okay, so get comfortable. The thing that we always start off with, or the key to unlocking quite literally most things in your life, is mindfulness. Mindfulness and meditation are two separately distinct things. Mindful meditation is a version of mindfulness, but not all mindfulness is meditation. Mindfulness, the definition I gravitate towards comes from Dr. Ellen Langer, Harvard professor, and it's the ability to pay attention to like context and variability, or just the awareness that things change over time through different circumstances and paying attention to how that makes you feel inside, like what's going on inside of yourself, and how is that in relationship to what is going on outside of you. How do certain people make you feel? Certain situations make you feel? How, when you feel a certain way, do you act towards certain people or act in certain environments? And really getting clear and comfortable and aware of those things. And that's where we start. Okay, so get comfortable, whatever that means for you. And maybe for today, just pay attention to something that feels important in the body right now. So maybe it's a sore shoulder. Maybe it's your breathing feels a little off. Maybe you are unable to be aware of your legs or backside of your body. Maybe you want to pay attention to like a racing thought, something that you can track. And as we do our somatic practices, our nervous system toolkit practices, the invitation is for you to pause after each practice. I'm not going to cue you to pause. I leave it up to you. Pause and go, how did that thing make me feel? And is it something I should remember and do more of in the future? And not everyone's going to have the same choices within that. Got it? And if you start to feel, if an exercise or practice makes you feel not so good, yeah, that's when you probably don't need to remember. Or if it doesn't change anything, it might not be the most important one for today, but you might want to come back to it, right? So there's a lot of spaciousness within these practices, which is really welcoming to a lot of people to kind of understand that there isn't a right or a wrong way. There's no perfect alchemy to get right here. And it's also uncomfortable for some people to know that there's not a script you can follow, that you're going to have to make some choices. So here we go. Get comfortable, notice whatever it is. And the first category is breath work. We're going to jump right into physiological side today. That's a double inhale followed by a single exaggerated exhale. Big inhale, full inhale, brief pause, exaggerated exhale. We're going to do about 3 to 5, whatever you can fit in about 30 to 40 seconds, starting now. Inhale. Inhale, exhale. About 20, 30 seconds more. And then notice what, if anything, has shifted. Now, you can continue with the breath work or just exaggerate your exhalation, but we're going to go into a sensory foraging technique. Oh, we got a Bob the dog spotting. Welcome. You got a hi, Bob. Robin says hi. We got some hearts for you too. It's really the star of the show here, everybody. Um, Now you can continue with the breath work, or we can just go into some sensory foraging. Today we're going to go through the sound or auditory sense, right? So just breathe like a normal human being, or continue with your physiological sigh and just listen to the sound of your own breath. Short sighting. Bye, Bob. Now, chances are, as you continue to breathe and listen to yourself breathing, that's likely the closest sound to you. Can you locate another sound in your space? Maybe it's someone else breathing in the room. Maybe it's the sound of a TV in another room, cars outside, birds, some sort of ambient sound. And see if you can toggle between the sound that's closest to you and the sound that's furthest away. Another 5 seconds. And now you can check in and discern, am I a breathwork person or a sensory foraging person? Which one works better for me? Next one's going to be therapeutic touch. You can bring your hands together, get them warmed. You can place them on your cheeks, your throat, your chest, your belly. Or for today's practice, I'm going to go into havening, Havening. Havening. Havening is just a soft therapeutic touch of the hands, almost like a gentle caress. You can also do it on the upper arms. You might want to do one at a time or two at a time, almost like you're petting a dog or a cat, kind of just stroking about that consistency, that pressure, or your face. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. If you are someone who tends to fall asleep easily but wake up in the night and kind of, disrupted sleep, things like havening tend to work really, really well, right? So I wake up in the middle of the night and then having a harder time falling back asleep than what I would prefer. You can go into like just a little gentle touch of the face or the hands. Maybe it's the chest or the belly, whatever it is. It's just like a gentle, gentle touch. And then checking in and seeing which one works better. Option one, two, or three, breath work, sensory foraging, or therapeutic touch. Now, from there, we can go into movement, and movement can be gentle, can be just a rocking right and left, or it can be that big pandiculation, which is stretching and breathing, yawning, or it could be shaking. You could get up and go for a walk. It can be a run, it can be exercise, it can be whatever it is, but movement is one of those categories. Or vocalization. Sigh. Hum. Some version of sound. So for the next 30 to 45 seconds, go ahead. We're even going to go longer. For the next minute, when I tell you, kind of run through whatever of these short abbreviated practices or one practice that works really well for you. On the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Another 15 or so seconds. And do a little check-in. What worked for you? How are you beginning to curate your own personal library of nervous system toolkit practices? Maybe it was stuff we explored today. Maybe you decided to, like I did, do things that we didn't actually do today, but that we've done in previous weeks. Maybe it's something you've been exploring all on your own, but I think creating that personal library of how to regulate your nervous system through physical practices is super, super important because they serve as a resource, right? And as we've talked in previous classes, you can use them to triage yourself when you feel dysregulated or disrupted. And done over time, it is these practices that recalibrate your nervous system to being more resilient, more fortuitous, resilient being able to recover for something after it's happened, more fortuitous or having fortitude, more able to prepare for something that is about to happen, and it builds capacity over time. You're just able to handle more. So the same practices are used to triage or in the moment make you feel better, more grounded, and done over time, they actually build out capacity in your nervous system to tackle change because all stress, all anxiety, all trauma is change that's either happened spontaneously or happened too fast, too much, too soon, or under-resourced for too long, creating trauma, and have kind of created a nervous system in us that is anxious, anticipates things changing too fast, too soon, or not having enough, or overwhelmed, right? Like just I'm in the middle of too much going on and now I'm incapacitated. So these practices kind of help with that. And as we explore and play and go into some of this cognitive reappraisal, which is now jumping up into the mental state, sort of the stories we tell ourselves, if at any time it feels like you are moving too fast too soon through one of these practices, go into a breath work. If you just want to listen and maybe practice havening, like that's a perfectly acceptable way to spend the next 15 minutes. I'm actually going to turn off my camera. I know, sorry, YouTube, it never makes for good YouTube, but it does actually make for a better personalized experience because I want to take you away from my journey here and help guide you through your own journey. So, what are we going to talk about now? Last week, we talked about cognitive appraisal and reappraisal. Cognitive appraisal is the thought of what am I sensing and feeling into in the moment, right? That could mean what is my body feeling in the moment, or what am I emotionally feeling in the moment. The two are often, they do not necessarily have to be coupled, but in our everyday experience, they are often coupled, meaning we have not spent time discerning and distinguishing between what I am physically feeling in my body and what is the emotion. Likewise, we are often coupling or bringing together what am I thinking and what am I feeling? And those are two distinctly different things. And all of that is separate from what is actually happening, meaning scenarios and experiences that are neutral out in the world are often thought of in our head as always bad or always good, or this person always does this, or this is always happening to me, specifically when we are thinking about change. So, as we're going through today, maybe a way to consider going through the rest of this class today is to put yourself in the mindset of what change are you currently going through or would you like to be navigating better? That might be a physical symptom, right? Like my shoulder and my neck hurts and it doesn't normally, or I have this um, pathology going on right now. It might be I'm having a relationship that's going through a shift. I'm in a new relationship, or I'm divorcing. I have a birth or a death in the family. I am navigating something at work. There's a big change going on. If you're a state worker, like a lot of you probably are out there, return to office, right? Like that's a big thing. A lot of people. It might be a new job position or a loss of a job. It might be retiring. I mean, there's so many different big changes and small changes. It could simply be that it is, if you're in Sacramento, Northern California right now, today is the first super hot day. So big, big changes, even environmentally, and what does that bring up in you? What stories does that bring up? And then as we go through the reappraisal process, it's sort of how do we begin to shift and change the stories we're telling ourselves? How do we look at how what is happening in the world, happening to us, how do we look at it differently? How do we reframe, recategorize the stories we are telling about ourselves and the world around us? Now, what is cognitive appraisal? Well, there's an event that happens. When that event happens, it physiologically makes you feel some way. If it's an exciting or scary or even like overly joyful event, it will often make your heart race a little bit. It might feel a specific way in your belly or in your shoulders. If it's something super sad, if it's something that's got grief mixed in or shame mixed in, it may make your gut feel a certain way. It may make your legs feel a certain way. And the more you begin to get attuned to what am I physiologically noticing, which is those nervous system toolkit practices, the better off you're able to feel like, oh, my physiological state has shifted. This person said something to me, this event has happened, and now it's making me physiologically feel something. And can I spot that? Because that often then goes up into our brains and becomes a thought, which immediately becomes an emotion, which immediately we begin to respond to. So events out in the world cause a physiological reaction in us, which generates thoughts and emotions and ultimately responses in the body. right? So let's make it super anecdotal and super simple for people. Here's an example for a lot of people. You send a friend a text, you send a coworker a Teams chat, whatever it is, you pick the example. You send that friend a text back and they don't text you back. There's no response. Maybe you send a Teams message to your teammate and you see they've read it and there is no response. And it's something that you were expecting a response to. Imagine that scenario and then guys, you've just shared something important with someone and they do not respond to it in the way that you would normally expect for them to respond to it. As you're just contemplating that scenario, notice, what does your belly feel like? What does your chest feel like? Your shoulders feel like? What's going on for you physiologically? Now, for a lot of us, the thought might be, I must have done something wrong. I must have said something weird. They must be angry at me. There must be something else I'm not important enough to respond to. And that ultimately makes a lot of us feel nervous, especially if we're talking in terms of like a friend or a relative and you've shared something important. There must be something wrong. Well, a reappraisal might say, what else might be true here? How else could I look at this? So, what else might be true in that scenario? Maybe they're busy. Maybe they were in the middle of a conversation or dinner. Maybe they were about to let the dog out and they saw that message and then the dog did something in the backyard and saw a squirrel, barked, whatever it is, and they got distracted and simply forgot. I mean, there's so many other possibilities and ways of thinking about it. And so ultimately, what stories are you used to telling yourself, especially in the right now moment? Now, put yourself, undoubtedly, if you're here, there is some change happening for you. Otherwise, this class probably wouldn't be important. There's a lot of other ways you can spend a Friday lunch. So now put yourself in context of whatever change it is that's going on, whether that's a personal or professional, environmental change, whatever change is going on right now. And pick one of them, right? Because there's a real possibility out there that someone could be moving, going through a relationship change, have a thing going on at work, a new knee pain, a lot of what this is. Pick one, pick just one thing that is happening in your life. And as you begin to think about what is that one thing that's happening in my life, I'm going to choose for me like a work scenario that's going on. As I think about that, and I let my memory just sort of go through the meetings and the conversations and the emails, I'm just going to begin to notice, how does my body physiologically respond? Immediately, I am very aware as I think about these things of like my feet, which is an indicator to me that like I kind of want to run from this, right? Like that's a fight or flight feeling, right? Because generally you're not walking around unless your feet are in pain, really being aware of your feet, really being aware of how you are grounded. Maybe you're ultra aware of your hands or your arms. Maybe that's a fight thing. Like there's an urge inside of your body to punch, to claw, to push away. Maybe there's a feeling in your gut, which is usually more of like a deep fear response, like a frozen response. Maybe it's up in your chest or your throat where you want to say something, get something off of your chest. Maybe it's like a very aware feeling up in your head, which is typically, I'm kind of stuck in too much thought. I'm paralyzed in thought. Maybe your sensation is something totally different, but just paying attention to what am I feeling right now, physiologically, in my body, that maybe you haven't noticed before, or maybe you do notice. And then as you pay attention to that, what words, emotions, sensations, categorizations pop up? This is why we have covered emotional literacy in this series and in previous series. Because typically here, you would think that's a good feeling, it's a bad feeling, or I'm sad, mad, or angry. But can it get a little more nuanced? I feel this way in my body, and it's making me feel what emotion, what is coming up for me and my body, again, guiding you through my experience, hoping it leads you to a better definition or experience of your own. I feel overwhelmed. And it's showing up as a desire in my body to fight or flee, to like move. And I feel overwhelmed. It's a big change. And can you begin to spot the thought that is associated about or with the change or the event? I notice this thing in my body. I notice an emotion. It's overwhelm. It might be sadness. It might be grief. It might be whatever word percolates up. And then I begin to spot, what am I thinking about this, right? And my emotion is overwhelmed. And my thought is, there's nothing I can do about this. I can't change this. This is going to be bad. And I just want you to notice. And then we're going to disrupt a little bit. Maybe we begin to challenge the thought. What else could be true here? So I'm feeling this thing in my body, and I'm labeling it as overwhelm emotionally. And the thought is, oh, this thing happened without a choice, and here I am, and there's nothing I can do. It's not going to be good. What else could be true? Maybe it won't be as bad. Maybe I'm catastrophizing something. Maybe it's a black or white thinking. Maybe I'm only thinking it can be good or it can be bad. Maybe portions of it will be just fine. And here's one thing that's really true about your body is it's sort of catastrophizing by nature. We have sort of a negativity bias. We tend to automatically jump to worst case scenario because it's a protection mechanism. So if this thing isn't good or bad, what else could it be? Is there a learning opportunity there? Is there a growth opportunity? Is there space or possibility to connect more deeply with one or two other people or learn something new about the system you're in, the relationship you are in, the work environment you're in, or something new about you? Maybe you are more resilient. Because how many times in your life have you thought something was going to be really, really, really bad, and it happened and it kind of sucked, and you're still here? You're still here. And what is the likelihood of you still being here even after whatever it is has happened? And so, as you look at what else could be true, maybe there's a reframe here, a cognitive reappraisal, a new story you might be able to tell yourself. If you're with us last week, it's exactly why we did where do I feel spacious? Where do I not feel spacious? Practice. How do I define spaciousness? How do I define lack of spaciousness? And we ended with noticing that the only way I could notice something that felt congested or lacking spaciousness was the reality that all around it was, in fact, spaciousness. I was able to notice the disruption because everything else around it had an element of stability to it. So maybe as you're looking at this change, if you're able to do that in your body, maybe that can happen in your life. That as this great big change is coming and maybe it's making you feel a certain way and it feels that that certain way is inescapable or predetermined, what new story is there? What new way of looking at it might be true? How else can I look at this thing? Because what stories am I telling myself right now that open up the doors to new stories? So begin to envision whatever change that is, and what new story might you tell yourself here? another 10 to 15 seconds of just being in that space. And as you're telling yourself this new story, thinking about this change or this event in a brand new way, notice how that makes you feel. Has anything shifted in your feet, your belly, your shoulders as you've gone through a process of re-examining? And for some people, this is a pretty abbreviated experience. Maybe you need more time, more repetition into doing a reappraisal, which is exactly why we're going to cover habits next week, right? We don't expect magic to happen in 10 to 15 minutes. What we do expect to happen is maybe a catalyst moment, a aha moment. But just noticing, how do you feel now? And if you're still lacking and needing some support, maybe there's a breath work there for you. Maybe there's a sensory foraging moment for you. Maybe there's a vocalization moment that needs to happen. All right, that's what we got for today. I'll stick around for whatever questions you got. There might be questions about somatic practices. There might be questions here about some cognitive appraisal and reappraisal, but you can kind of see now how some of what we practice in the body is actually directly related to things that you can apply to relationships and work experience and so on and so forth. I feel very relaxed. Thank you so much. We have a Q&A time here. Let's see. Can you remind me again what James mentioned regarding turning off the camera for cognitive processing? Yes. So often when you are watching just me on screen, right? Your nervous system is automatically intrigued by my experience, what is going on in me. So you will find that often when I'm doing meditation or like cognitive work or something where I invite you to have a personal experience, I will turn off my camera because I don't want your nervous system distracted by my nervous system. So it's a little teaching tip or a little awareness tip for people. Mindfulness author. I got her book right here, Dr. Ellen Langer. And this book is mindfulness, but she's got several others, and she's got some YouTubes, and she's been on a ton of podcasts. Last name is Langer, Langer, Dr. Ellen Langer. She's known as the mother of mindfulness, Harvard professor. Okay. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. I think that is what we've got for today. Bob, I will let Bob know. He like ran out the door today, but I will let him know that everyone wished him yeah, live in class next, but there will be habits, and then I will be with you for the final class. And again, final class of the summer will be June 13th. We will be on our summer hiatus. So join us next week for our, is it next week? No, next 2 weeks. Like what day is it? June 13th. That's if that's a Friday, June 13th. That is our last class and our last week. Okay? Thank you all so much. The question, why do I have to sign up to log in every time? That would be a question for Raymond. I don't have Raymond. It looks like there's a question from, and I don't want mean to mess up your first name, Lavinia Phillips here about needing to log in every time. That should not be the case, but I don't control logins or any of the back end functions of this. I'm just a partner for Western Health Advantage here. So I'll leave this. Raymond, if you're around,
Yep.
Lavinia has a question here.
Yeah,
And
I was just gonna answer that. So Lavinia, if you can in the chat, can you please leave your email? I will reach out to you separately because I just want to make sure if that's an issue on our end or if that is, let's say, for whatever reason, your Zoom on your machine makes you re-sign in. So it could be either of those issues. So if you can, please leave your email, and then I will connect with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Raymond. Okay, everyone, I'm out. Bye for now.